Hello, C7 her. Hey, so we're gonna try again. He said he didn't see the request, so hopefully this time. Hey, Taylor May. I'm waiting. Hey, Krystal, how are you? I'm doing well. I'm doing as well as I can do. There he is. Great. Uh, go live. There he is.
Hello.
Hi. So is it?
Hi, Chris. Hi, Crystal. How are you?
I'm fine. And you pronounce your name, is it Habib?
That's yeah, Habib. Pronounced it correctly.
Okay, so it's Habib. Is it Akande?
Ak- Akande is actually the proper way of pronouncing it, but most people say Akande, but you pronounced it correctly.
Okay, good. Well, how have
It's
you?
got an accent. It's the E has an accent, so it's Akande, but many people spell it and pronounce it Akande, but you
Oh,
pronounced it correctly.
well, Akande don't sound right. That sounds American. Akande. That doesn't sound right.
Well, in the UK, when I was younger, they used to tease me and say Candyman.
Ah,
So
that's cute. That's sexy. I like Candyman. But anyway, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I had a rough night last night, but I'm so happy to be talking to you. So you're joining us from London?
That's correct. Yeah, London.
Oh, how's it
We're
there?
in lockdown. Well, to be honest, I'm trying to be optimistic with the whole lockdown. I mean, the whole world is, as you know, is on lockdown. I'm just looking at it. Um, I think it's um, I think it's a sign from God for us to reset and just contemplate and reflect on our lives. So my heart goes out to obviously those who are suffering and there are those that are less fortunate. But for me personally, yes, I did have many plans, but at the end of the day, the way I look at it, it's a time to reflect and just to think about what matters most in life. So as much as it was quite difficult and disorientating in the first couple of weeks, the last couple of weeks I've seen many of the benefits that have come out of it, that it's allowed me to reconnect and just not only reflect on my life, but reflect on a lot of stuff that which I probably should have done that I haven't been doing in terms of spending more time with certain family members and just reflecting on and just appreciating the little things in life. So as much as yes, I'm looking forward to when the restrictions have been lifted and we can go back to our normal lives. I think personally, particularly those of us living in the Western world, where we don't have to worry about food and drink and things like that. I think it's a good. I think personally, I think God has done this to humble us. So for me, I can just see the benefits from it. So I'm just trying to be optimistic and see the silver line in the clouds, so to speak. So
Yeah.
rather than complain, I'm just trying to see the positives from it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's Mother Nature's way of saying I'm in control right now, so y'all just sit down and deal with it and
Yeah.
reflect. And
Yeah.
and it's as a spiritual person like yourself, you try to see the upside, but then you also realize there's going to be a lot of grieving and there's going to be a lot of loss, and it's going to be tough. So I always try to keep that in mind, like you said, thinking about less fortunate, and I guess for myself too, as I go through transitions and have to reflect on the things that I should be doing. So I feel exactly how you feel. So I
Yeah.
just want to introduce you. This is Habib Akande. He is a health and wellness sex educator, historian, and he's author of 6 books. I read his book Kunyaza. I have it here, um, and which is about. It seems like it's basically about a Rwandan technique on how to help women orgasm and ejaculate or squirt. When you seem to interchange those words, and I've actually, and we can talk about that more later, but I've learned that they're two different things, can be two different things, ejaculating and squirting. But that's basically what the book is about. But it also gives like just good like foundational information about the sexual behaviors and love behaviors of Africans compared to the Western world, and how um, I guess sex educators are evolving, and you give a lot of good resources. So it's just a good, well-rounded book, and it's a quick read. So what's your background, and besides what I just said specifically, and kind of how did you get into studying African erotology?
Okay. Um, so I wanted to just go back to what you mentioned about the female ejaculation and squirting. So I apologize if it wasn't quite clear from the book, but I did distinguish between the two. So obviously by female ejaculation, we're referring to the emissions of fluid from a woman's urethra. Now, I did explain in chapter 6 that there's a difference between so although people do use the terms interchangeably, I did distinguish between the two terms where because someone else has asked me that question that they thought I used the terms interchangeably, and what I did mention in the book is that scientists, when they speak about female ejaculation, they say it comes into two types of female ejaculate. The true female ejaculate, they say that's small in substance or small in quantity, and then the large quantity is generally referred to as squirting. But because people use the terms interchangeably, that's why sometimes when I was referring to female ejaculate, I was referring to actual female ejaculation as opposed to the larger expulsion of fluid, which is generally referred to as squirting. But yeah, you are right, and I'm glad you picked that up for the benefit of people listening, that there is a difference between female ejaculation and squirting, and also it's not the same as orgasm, because there's a lot of misinformation and misconceptions surrounding the topic. But back to myself, so I am, by profession, I'm a chartered accountant and a tax advisor, which is not the most interesting profession in the world. So that's my that's my 9 to 5 day job. The writing books is really a passion. It's really a passion project. Yeah, like you said, I've written 6 books on a number of issues, mainly dealing with history, African history and Islamic history. I'm a Muslim, and looking at the experiences in the history of Black and African people, because I think I used to be someone who used to complain a lot that why is it we lack representation as Black people and the contribution that we've made in world history. And I thought, rather than complaining about it, because I was fortunate to spend 3.5 years in Egypt when I graduated from college or university. Oh, nice. So I thought, okay, and I studied Arabic. I had access to a number of Arabic books that spoke about the history of Black people and African people. So I thought it would be good to kind of translate it and kind of make it beneficial or make it of use to people that are interested in it. Now, how did I get from writing and studying about history and the history of Black people in the Muslim world and Africa to sex and sexuality? There is actually a link, because people think, okay, from accountancy to history to religious history to sex, they are all interlinked. So with, like I mentioned, when I was in Egypt, I came across a number of Muslim writers who spoke about the contributions of African people towards African sexuality. So one of my books, A Taste of Honey, was looking at erotology, but from a Arab and North African perspective. And one thing I wanted to look at was that, okay, what about the contributions of Black people to sex and sexuality? Because when I always ask people, off the top of your head, tell me some contributions or positive contributions of Black and African people towards sex, sexuality, love, intimacy, things like that. Generally, the only things that people can think of is, stereotypes like mandingo,
Oh, no.
maybe something recent. Yeah, no, seriously, mandingo. Because again, it's still synonymous with Black people. So maybe mandingo. They might say, what's the lady from South Africa? Hot and Venus, Sarah Bartman, twerking. So it's all, and some of these figures, unfortunately, they've either been, because they've been told from a Western perspective or through the white person's lens, they've either kind of hypersexualized the Black figure, and they're not also appreciating the contributions that Black and African people have made. When I came across the Kunyaza tradition, whilst a reader actually sent me a message and was asking why is it I didn't mention Kunyaza in one of my books about African erotology, and I was like, I didn't know what Kunyaza was. I did my Googles, and I was astounded to see this, this great tradition. And again, it's not just the actual technique which we'll speak about, it's the fact that there's this ancient tradition from Rwanda in East Africa, where a number of Africans, Black Africans, were speaking positively about sex, sexuality, intimacy, and African, not only the African person, but the African woman was at the forefront. And African woman was teaching this to generation after generations. And I thought this would be a really interesting study, not only to write about and to speak and to hopefully like propagate, but also to kind of document, because it's many traditional African cultures are oral cultures, they're not preserved in books. So my fear as well was that this might be another culture that might lose its essence over a period of time. And many articles that where people was writing about it, they didn't really amplify the African woman's voice. And I thought, even as a man, I wanted to highlight the contributions that Black and African women have made towards traditions like Kunyaza, and there's other African traditions about intimacy like Kayan Mata from Nigeria and like, African waist beads. So I just wanted to highlight the contributions that the Africans, particularly African or Black women, have made towards sex and sexuality. And then looking at it from, like, you can say, a marketing perspective. Obviously, I'm a man. I generally know how men think. Obviously, I'm a straight man. So I was like, there's been a number of books written about female sexuality and female ejaculation in the last, 5 to 10 years. And I was thinking, okay, I want to add something new to the topic. I don't want to just talk about what people already know. So I thought, okay, maybe if I initially target men, because this is something that men are interested in, and if obviously, because I'm speaking about a topic to do with female sexuality, for my experience, a lot of women will be interested just to hear, okay, what's the male perspective? How do the men view this? So although my book can come across as quite, as someone pointed out to me, androcentric, as if I'm speaking as a man to other men, I'm speaking to men with women in mind, if that makes sense. Because I think it can be quite problematic in this day and age if you've got a man telling a woman what to do, if that makes sense. So I'm not telling women what to do or how to behave in the bedroom. I'm like writing as if I'm speaking to myself, or younger version of myself, or my male friends, but with women in mind. Because one thing and I also do workshops and things like that, one thing I've realized is that if I have like a workshop, and my workshops are like mixed gendered, but if I have a workshop only for women, men won't come and listen. But if I also have a workshop to do with women or about women, but directed at men will come and listen, and so would women as well. So just because, again, like I know like the male ego and the way our psyche is that sometimes if I want to, and again, because a lot of men are, and I am generalizing here, we are quite goal orientated. We want to know, okay, all this talk about love, intimacy, and female desire, that's important, but what can I get out of it? Because we've got that ego. We want to know, what can I get out of it? Then if I just tell them, oh, there's a technique, that you can make your woman squirt, I'm in. So that's how to kind of, I'm getting men. And then obviously from that, then obviously when we delve into actual topic to explore that the technique itself is not new. It's not something that's groundbreaking, but ultimately it's to kind of teach people, to teach men and obviously women as well, to understand that women have, which I think is important to understand now, that they're entitled to female to pleasure just as much as men. And for me, I'm quite a traditionalist, as in I think it's a man's duty to pleasure his female partner. I don't think a man should leave the bedroom until she's actually had an orgasm, or if she doesn't want to have an orgasm, at least being pleasured or satisfied in the bedroom. So I think putting the onus on men is more important than for me putting that onus on women, because I think women are under enough pressure as it is. And this idea that, and I'm not trying to make it like a woman has to squirt, or she should squirt, or she should be multi-orgasmic, but she has the ability to do that. And I think having a culture, especially coming across traditional cultures in East Africa, where it was normalized. So when now a lot of women, and I think, and again, obviously I'm not speaking on behalf of women, but from what I've heard in personal experiences, one of the reasons why a number of women find it difficulty to reach an orgasm or squirt, especially with a man, is because a lot of whether it's a lot of psychological issues or maybe hang-ups, not being able to let go when they're with a partner. And I think when you look at a number of the sex educators and sex positive coaches and things nowadays, they speak a lot about, which is good, about women embracing their sexuality, being comfortable to whether ejaculate, orgasm, or squirt by themselves, obviously like with a sex toy or via masturbation. But with a man involved, it's different.
Yes.
And that's something that I thought, okay, how can we bridge that gap where women can feel comfortable to orgasm, squirt, ejaculate, or just be satisfied with a man as well? Because we're hearing a lot about how women can be satisfied by themselves, but we're not hearing as much about how women can feel pleasured and be satisfied with a male partner. And I think that's very important, especially some parts of my work I'm trying to close the pleasure or orgasm gap
Yeah, I
between the
think.
genders.
Yeah, I think that's really important. When I was talking to Ahana, I think is how you say, and she was asking me about my teacher, and I was saying, yeah, my teacher was a male. I was introduced through Tantra through a male, and I was like, when I started to unlock my feminine divine, I attracted men, and good I had good experiences with men. And so that I felt like that pulled the wisdom and and balanced me out a lot more because it was the masculine divine. I was very fortunate, I guess maybe because I did a lot of heart chakra work and a lot of just my own work, and I attracted good positive men in my life, and it really helped me grow exponentially. I felt like more than if I would have started off with women, because I just think that naturally it was designed as far as like duality is concerned. So I believe that. And that's one thing about the book I think that people should understand. I feel like the book was very balanced. I didn't feel like it was for men or women, because you reference women a lot. You reference a lot of women sex educators. And
Yeah.
and I felt like it was really balanced, and people should know that this book is more like a couples book. Like it's more within the realm of like a marriage or committed relationship or loving relationships when you're practicing these techniques, which often does get lost in the world of sex education. It's all about liberation and self-exploration. But I'm very, very much about intimacy and love and solid relationships, because when it comes, because I think that's what people want. Like, even though they say they want to just be able to do whatever they want to do and don't tell them what to do, everybody's looking for love. Everybody's looking for connection, but they just don't know how to do it. Unfortunately, I think there's so many women that experience sexual violence, it's hard for them to start off with men. And then men are so,
Mm.
especially over here in the United States, you know, we've all fed all this toxic kind of music and media. So it's hard for us to be vulnerable, you know, or want to connect without
Mm.
feeling like we're being taken advantage of, or we don't feel like we're enough. You know, we've got all these kind of toxic things that we're going through. And then on top of that, we lack culture. We lack spiritual context with everything that we do. So like even in Africa, with Africans, like even if they are, you know, maybe they may not be aware of like the ancient Egyptians rituals, you know, sexual rituals, but they do know that a lot of their dances and their beads represent fertility, or they represent something outside of just I'm trying to look sexy. Like there's still a spiritual context, even if it's not extremely deep, like having a Kundalini awakening. They still know that it means more. The energy behind it means more. And I think
Mm.
over here in the United States, that's lost a lot. And maybe even in a lot of European countries, that's lost a lot. So like you have the education, but the intimacy and the culture, you don't have that. So you know, it's stripped away, the energy is different, and so there's not that intimacy between people. But let's get to like talking about squirting and ejaculation a little bit more. Why do you think, because I know there's probably some people watching right now that think, oh, ejaculation or squirting is just pee. Like you know, whenever this topic comes up, a lot of men especially are saying, oh, well, is it pee or not? Is it, you know, they get mad about it too. So what would you say to people who might be skeptical of about female ejaculation or squirting and whether it's pee or not?
Yeah, I'm surprised that. Well, okay, I'll say it like this. Initially I was surprised people, especially men, would think that female ejaculation or squirting is pee or urination. But then the more I've spoke to different men who have got that view, I think one of the reasons because maybe they've never experienced or never been with a woman who has actually ejaculated or squirted. Because if you've been with a woman who has, then you know it's not even a question. That's why for me, I used to hear that a lot. That is it pee? Is it not pee? And for me, it's like, of course it's not. And again, obviously from personal experience, and then it's not even going by what scientists like. The go-to thing which a lot of people go to now is this scientist that, you know, they're debating. It's
And
like
they
if
don't know
it's
either.
and they don't know, but I
They're
don't need the
confused.
scientist to tell me. Yeah, they're confused, but I don't need a scientist to tell me what I've seen and I've not experienced myself. Do you understand? But then obviously I can't show people what I've experienced, and I can't even show them everyone I've spoken to. But then I have to realize, okay, then let's look at, okay, those who say, why do people think it's pee? I think because a lot of men, their understanding or perception of squirting is what they've seen from pornography. Then it's just explain to them, okay, that what you're seeing in pornography is not actually the squirting maybe that I'm speaking about. That's why I think it's also important to explain in terms of what I mean by squirting and female ejaculation. And even a lot of the porn stars that you speak, that if you were to ask them, they would say sometimes a lot of it is pee, where they drink a lot of water beforehand, and they've got an apparatus to help them gush this liquid, which looks like, well, it looks like, but so it's an exaggerated form of squirting. So I think that's a starting point. So when people's asking, is it pee or not pee, then I always ask the men the question, okay, when you ejaculate or when you've got pre-cum, do you ever question whether that's pee or not? They never question, they know, but then there is some trace of urine in that. And it comes from the same orifice where you urinate, where you pee from. So why is it you don't question that? Because that's their own experience, and they know it's not. And they know that when you can't ejaculate and pee at the same time. But then you also say, men, there's many times when maybe when you're aroused or when you're penetrating a woman and you feel like you want to urinate, you feel like you want to pee, but you can't, but then you ejaculate. But you don't ever question yourself, did I pee or did I ejaculate? Because you know, do you understand what I'm getting at? So that will be the starting point that I'll try and ask men who've got that, who think it is pee, why do they think it is, or what do they understand squirting or female ejaculation to be? And then from there, again, once you've defined what it is and maybe clarified maybe some misconception that they have in terms of what is female